If I'm allowed to be honest about the Reds, like I listen.
Sounds like you're gonna be like me here.
I'm over it, if we're being honest.
Over what?
I'm over all of the spring training debates. I'm over all of the whether this guy should have made it over this guy. I get Mike Ford. I'm sure we'll get into that in a minute. I understand why people are upset about that. I get that the Jose Barrera made the Rangers, and some people want to get upset about that because he's on the opening day roster for the World Champions, but he can't make it when we have 3 guys hurt in the infield. I understand all of it, but I guess I watched Full Swing last night. And I feel like I'm Rory McIlroy with the live stuff on episode 2.
Yep.
I'm just kind of like, at this point, just tell me when the games start and when they matter, and I'm ready to watch. I'm ready to watch, but I'm done debating whether or not a guy's hitting 500 in spring training, if he's the next coming of Alex Rodriguez, and by that I don't mean the PEDs, I just mean the play. Although PEDs are a part of spring training for the Reds, unfortunately. And is Alexis Diaz, Steve just asked in the chat, is Alexis Diaz, I don't know. I had said last season, I said, I think it was like right before we had gone into the new year, we did a Reds show, and everyone asked, who's the one player that you're worried about regressing the most? My answer was Alexis Diaz, so I can't backtrack on that now and say I'm not worried at all about him. But I feel like you can get so deep into the weeds on this that sometimes you just take a nice fresh breath of air and you relax and you say, you know what? I'm just going to watch opening day as if I don't know anything that happened this spring. Now, that's being naive. I get it. But that's what I think the vast majority of the fan base does. I think the vast majority of the fan base that if you took a poll, and you can call them bandwagon fans if you want, but if you took a poll of people that said that they were going to watch the Reds playoff game, what percentage of them actually know all of the decisions that are being made right now that guys like us debate about?
Not a ton.
Not a lot. I don't think there's a lot. And there's sometimes I wonder to myself, not that that's the completely right way to be about it, but I think that there is ignorance as bliss is somewhat of a true statement in this situation with the Reds. Because we don't know what the spring training numbers ultimately mean. We sit here and we debated on what it actually is. But why would a guy like Mike Ford get cut from this team when he had the spring he had is the only genuine question I would have to the front office. And I'm sure there's a delightful, very eloquently stated answer as to why he didn't make the team. But if you invite a guy to spring training, to Major League camp, and he does what Mike Ford did, how does he not make the team? Genuinely, I don't know if there's an answer that you could give me that I would be satisfied with. Now, I'm not suggesting it's the wrong move either, because I don't know enough to make a really educated decision on it. I've not seen Mike Ford play a ton. I've not, been in the clubhouse, if you want to call it that, in spring training about what the vibes are. Maybe this guy nobody likes. I don't know. Again, that's huge speculation on my end. I'm not suggesting for a single second that's the reason. I get on the X.com app yesterday, and I'm just so nauseated with all of it. You have the Trevor Bauer thing stirred up again because he got a couple Yankees out. And yes, I stood on on the hill or whatever you want to call it last season, and I'm the one that put out the tweet that I had a picture of him in his Japanese uniform, and it was him, doing a sword thing. And I said we should at least think about it. And that was because they were in the middle of a pennant race, okay? And they had literally no pitchers.
Out of arms.
Completely out of arms. So I was like, you know what? Well, let's just throw it. If we're going to try to win, and that's win at all costs, then okay, I'm open to it. But now it's like, do we really have to continue to debate whether or not Trevor Bauer should be on this team or that team or this team? I guess I'm to the point now where I've been beaten over the head with this for so long, I've given up. I am openly admitting I've given up on the Trevor Bauer thing. I'm giving up on the Mike Ford thing. I'm just ready for opening day to start, and let's just act as if nothing happened before, and I'm ready to go. Because if Alexis Diaz goes out and throws the ball well in the first 15, 20 games, we're going to make fun of everybody questioning whether or not he was ready to go based off of his previous body of work when it mattered the most. But if he does struggle, then everyone's going to point directly right towards spring training and say that's where it started. the truth seems to lie somewhere in the middle of all of that. And I wonder to myself now where the vibes, unfortunately, I've let, and this is my problem, not yours. I'm wondering if you're in the same boat as me. I've let some of the rhetoric and all of the things that have happened this spring, in a way, take away from what I should be excited about, which is opening day and the Reds starting. And I get it, Noelve not being there, and Matt McClain not being there, and TJ Friedel not being there is probably a big reason as to why I feel the way I do. But should it is the question I have. Should it?
I don't know. To comment off your Mike Ford thing, the guy was hitting like 450 this spring, power bat.
Yeah, 1,000 plus.
I don't know how that's not a guy you want off the bench. When you're begging for runs, and Trace just mentioned the list of injuries we're dealing with on the offensive side of the baseball, it's hard to imagine that you don't want a guy that can produce a home run at will late in the 8th inning. It's wild to me. I don't understand it unless there was some other move that they're waiting, but that's never going to happen. So I don't know what that is. I don't get it. I will say this. I get your sentiment that I'm done with the spring. I'm done with the spring training, overreactions, underreactions, all the reactions. Spring training is exactly what Reed Mouse said it was. It is a place where your narrative can be proven right or you can dismiss it altogether. It just doesn't matter. I still firmly believe for a lot of these guys, they go out there, they're putting in workouts, they're getting their bodies ready, but in terms of gamesmanship, there's not a ton of it. There's just not. It's spring training baseball. You're there. It's essentially practice. They're all exhibition games. They don't really matter. So if some guys don't have that juice, you look around some of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball, they've got terrible ERAs this spring because they know and the world knows that it doesn't really matter. Saying that, there are a couple of guys heading into the season I'm a little concerned about. I do think Hunter Green, this is a major year for him. Major year for him. If Hunter Green, A, is missing 2 months of the season again, or B, still has an ERA up in the 4.5 range, I don't know what we have with Hunter Green. I don't know. And right now we're heading into this season where I thought I was going to be really excited, really excited. And now I don't know as much. I'm not going to go into the Reds are dead thing again because they're most definitely not. It's 162 games. We're going to get TJ Friedel back eventually. We know nothing about Matt McClain, not a single thing. We don't know what the first opinion was. He's going to see his second opinion today with a doctor in L.A., one of the best doctors in the world, I imagine. And we're going to find out what happens there. So maybe we get Matt McClain back earlier than we expect.
TJ Friedel's supposed to come back earlier than expected.
Yep, 6 weeks I think is what I saw, around 6 to 8 weeks.
Closer to 6 weeks instead of 8, they were suggesting. They got good news, whatever that means. This is also the guy that David Bell, we're relying on David Bell. I just want to make that as an
That sounds like slander, but to David Bell.
That
sounded like a little bit of slander to a
I'm not
guy,
slandering
to
David.
a guy that has to say something to the media.
And that's my point, is that he has to say something. So oftentimes you might not get the actual truth.
And that's fair. That's fair. But that's the guy's job. If he doesn't say something, people are still upset. If he does say something, people are upset. I saw on Twitter last week, why is David Bell opening his mouth if he doesn't know anything? Because that's his job. He quite literally has to do so. Now, granted, it did seem like David Bell said in a quote that the injury was nothing to worry about or something along those lines. It wasn't as serious as one originally thought. Whatever. It's clearly a very serious injury, and we'll play it day by day. Until I hear news from Charlie Goldsmith that injury is season-ending, it's a torn labrum or whatever it will be, I'm not going to freak out about Matt McClain. I'm ready for opening day. I'm just excited to watch baseball, like you said. I don't want to say I'm completely down or out on the Reds, but heading into the season, my expectations are shifting. I no longer think the team is going to win the division. I no longer think the team's going to make the postseason. But I think they're going to be competitive the whole way through. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for what I would have asked for last year heading into the year without really a shadow of expectation that it was even possible. I expect this team to be competitive. They went out, despite all the haters, they went out and spent a ton of money this free agency. I don't know what they ranked in spending this offseason, but it was in top half of the league. You're going to be okay.
I don't know if you're wearing off on me, if the long spring wore off on me, but I think it's mostly the fact that McClain and obviously
Noelvi took it all out.
Noelvi
took it all out.
The two most guys I was excited to watch as rookies are both not probably going to be there. And again, I know that maybe we're always supposed to be the ones that rally the troops here, and I guess maybe I'm asking, am I being too overly pessimistic? But it just doesn't. The vibes, I guess, is the term to use here. The vibes don't feel right now. TJ Friedel, you could make the case that of all the guys that could have gotten injured in spring training, he's one of the very few guys that you could afford to actually lose based off of what he brings to the team and who he is and where he plays. And I just hope that Ellie performs, because that's the concern that I have now, is that I think that Ellie is such a raw player at this moment in his career that you could convince me that the kid will go out and hit 100 his first month and a half. You could also convince me he's going to hit 400 and be the best player in baseball. That's the margin of difference that we're talking about with Ellie De La Cruz right now. And I'm just, I guess, for lack of a better term, semi-concerned would be where I'm at heading into opening day.
I think that's fair.
Semi-concerned. I don't know what we're going to get.
I don't think, and that's where this fan base is like, oh, you're being negative. You can't look at this roster and look at the injuries and the steroid user, and you can't say, all right, I have a little bit of doubt now. You're allowed to have some doubt as it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not. It hasn't been for quite some time. And I know I'm pointed as the negative fan, and you can go ahead and do so, but when you have 4 or 5 winning seasons in 26 years, it's a joke. When you don't advance in the postseason ever, it's a joke. So, yeah, I'm a little worried. I'm a little nervous. But Nick Krall has done everything the right way since he's gotten that job.
Maybe. That's okay. Maybe.
What?
When you say that Nick Krall's done everything the right way, that's where, like, okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit. I am all about giving Nick Krall his flowers, and he's deserved them mostly. But, like, let's pump the brakes a little bit here. Let's wait to see how Jamier Candelario performs before we sit here and act like that's the world's best. We also signed Mike Minor. Like
the Mike Minor was the only knock on him, because that was the world's worst move.
My point is that we can't act like this guy's been perfect if he's not.
No, but he's done a
great job. I'm not downplaying it. Like we've been on the pod. I'm not trying to again sound like I'm being overly critical here, but Craig points out in the chat, and he is right. This opening day roster is better than the one last year.
100%.
But here is the concern I have. This is where I get a little depressed. The reason why this team overperformed last year, over a month and a half, they overperformed. Can we expect them to replicate what they did last summer again? Can we expect them to go on a 12-game winning streak again? Can we expect Matt McClain to play unworldly again? Ellie De La Cruz was the best player in baseball for a week and a half, or whatever it may be, and maybe he'll be the same again. I don't know. But we can't act as if just because there's a better roster on opening day, that makes it automatically assumed that they're going to have a better year. Now, I'm not suggesting that's what everybody's thinking, but again, you go into opening day, and guess what? There is a big chunk missing as to what made this team good last year. Like it or not, Matt McClain's a big deal. Like it or not, Noelvi Marte, I think, is a big deal. And the biggest knock is TJ Friedel. And now you start to question whether or not these guys are injury prone. Like, that's where I'm at now. And I know that I'm spiraling into the deep end maybe, and I just need opening day to come around and I can just reset and relax and quit worrying about all this. But I was super excited to watch Matt McClain play. I thought Matt McClain looked like a gamer. I thought we had the traditional Cardinal. You know, all the guys like the Ecksteins of the world, the Cardinals always seem to run out. They just had great player after great player after great player. You could never get rid of these guys. It's like the Cardinals, they just roll the balls out there and they just find nothing but pros. And then all of a sudden I felt like we have that. And the question ultimately comes now to whether or not we will have that. I don't know.